Hi, my name is Ken and I wrote the Microbiome prescription website whose main goal is to facilitate microbiome multiplication to reduce symptoms from a variety of disease and diagnoses, etc. And symptoms, microbiome shift are associated with certain symptoms. Now, this is the second one of the series. The first one dealt with other lab analysis, which is a variety of labs which are often prescribed. Many of them are very old technology. All of them has a variety of problems. One of which is that unit of measurements of these versus other labs are different. A good analogy is this. If you're measuring community-forming units per gram, then the weight of each bacteria becomes very important. Think of it this way. You have a pickup truck, and you want to know how many tires can you put into the back of it. The answer depends on what size the tires are. If you are talking about Lego tires, you can have 100,000 in the back of the pickup truck. If you're talking about regular car tires, you may be able to get 15 or 20. If you're talking about monster truck tires or tractor tires, you may be down to 5 or 6. If you're talking about the big construction tires used for open pit mining, you may just be able to squeeze one in. That is the basis of how they are measuring it. It's by counting how many tires goes into the back of a pickup truck. The other way is, okay, how many of these 1 million tires are made by Goodyear? How many tires are made by something else? So it's by counting the number of tires belonging to a particular group and doing a count of all the tires you happen to have in your freighter or your shop or whatever. So it's the same but different. You're same physical objects, but how you're counting them is different. One is counting them based on the size or the weight of each tire and comparing it to a defined space like the back of a pickup truck. The other one, you're counting over a bunch of over all your tires and seeing what percentage are Goodyear tires, etc. Two different ways of measuring the same thing, and that's why the reports are different and why numbers on one report do not translate to the other report. Because are we talking about a Lego tire or an open pit mining tire, which is bigger than my house? That's the problem. Okay, and there's no easy translation. Some bacteria are very small, some are much, much bigger. So there's no easy formula to convert back and forth. Okay, so that's the old way. And what I'm going to do is I want to go on to method number 2, which is uploading ones which are reporting by the number of bacteria out of a million has become the standard reference. Or if you prefer, what percentage of the microbiome are particular bacteria? And this is done by actual count. 25% of the bacteria are bifidobacterium, whatever. So what we have here is the upload page, and what we have is we have first class and second class. And the difference between first class and second class is very simple. There is no standardization of bacteria naming, unfortunately. And in fact, if you're interested in the background of this nightmare, I did a blog post about over a year and a half ago called The Taxonomy Nightmare Before Christmas. And in it, I sort of tried to explain what's happening. What happens when the sample goes into the lab, it goes in the machine, and what comes out is a sequence of only 4 characters, same 4 characters that DNA has. So it's basically, if you wish, the DNA of all the bacteria in your gut. And then the question is, which combination belongs to who? For example, in terms of human DNA, oh, hey, this is big stretch of Neanderthal. For example, I'm 2% Neanderthal. My wife is 4% Neanderthal. Of course, I tease her about that. but also percentage African, percentage Asian, etc. All can be determined from there. The same style of mathematics or prediction is done with the microbiome sample, as in saying what percentage are bifidobacteria and what percentage are Staphylococcus, and onwards and onwards. One of the main things is this, and it's one way it's a nightmare. Fortunately, it's a nightmare I know how to reasonably handle, which is this lovely quote: there are 97 different ways to analyze the same raw data, the same sequence of 4 characters, the same DNA, and they will give you 97 different answers. And who said this? It's from NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the U.S. government agency responsible for standards, including things like medical standards. And he is frustrated. This is 2019, 2 years ago. There have been no standardization. So you take the same sample, you go to biome site, to Nirvana, to Microba, to Xenogen, you give them the same data, and they'll come back with a different answer every time, a different answer, which means we have a little bit of fun in terms of processing it. I'll talk about the tricks of processing that in my third video, but for the moment, I want to walk through the basics of getting a sample into the system, and then we'll look at playing with the sample in later videos. Lots of learning to do, believe me. So we have this nice list of people who are doing things, and the secondary list is, okay, the primary list returns the bacteria in general with what's called a Ncbi number, which is coming from the National Institute of Health in the US, where they have a master list of bacteria and numbers for each one. Think of it as a Dewey Decimal System or in our library system. Here's the name of it. I know exactly where the book would be found, and the name actually specified which book. Other people have come up with their own versions of it, just like I remember the Dewey Decimal System and what was it, the Congress Decimal System back in the university days. 2 different ways of putting labels on books indicating what the book is. And of course, there's even more than 2 out there. So the way microbiome prescription is set up, it uses the Ncbi identity numbers, which are all integers. And if you go up here and just go into lookup bacteria, and you see right here, here's the Ncbi number, 1578, etc. So that is the magic set of numbers I'm using for the system. That's how data is referenced. That's how I know whether or not we're talking about the same thing. And one of the reasons is if you take a look across here, you see we have 5, 6 names, some cases 25 names, all for the same bacteria, depending on who found it, what was published, and conventions and standards. Some call it a rose, some calls it a rosin, some calls it a pink flower thing. I would call it stinky, whatever. Different names from different people. All the names are being published in the literature. A lack of standardization keeps coming back to this nightmare. Lack of standardization. So here's the Ncbi number, one number. Here's a bunch of alternative names, and there can be dozens and dozens of alternative names. So if you go back to something like, let's go down, Acidophilus here. And we'll see we have even more names for different, for Acidophilus. Some of the names are almost cryptic. Like one name is OMG 13550. As in, oh, okay, that's sort of meaningful. That some papers, some studies will actually refer to it like that. But fortunately, the Ncbi has standardized with numbers, and that's what we are using. And that is what I'm using, mainly because one of my favorite data sources, which is the Kyoto Encyclopedia of Genomics, runs their database also off the Ncbi numbers, as did the ancient provider of microbiome testing, which is Ubiome. So there's a bunch of people who have standardized on that, some very significant people, but of course, people always trying to reinvent the wheel and have a better reel. So we have alternatives, which comes down to the second class one, which is they don't provide Ncbi number. They may provide a name, and the name may or may not be listed anywhere in the Ncbi number. Sometimes it's creativity. Perhaps it's Lactobacillus lactosum. Don't know. What we end up doing is we end up doing as close matches to stuff. What that generally means is that at the higher level we have pretty good matches. When we get down to species, or on strains, we often don't have any match. So the depth of accuracy diminishes very fast with these because we are trying to name match and the names may not match quite often. Okay, so we have a bunch of choices here. Which one is best? That's all subjective. In terms of what I'm trying to do, the ones that are best are the ones that has the most samples, because that gives us the best ability to determine what the ranges are. And as you can see here, we have the number of uploads here. We have Ubiome, which is still number one, which is almost 900 samples before they went out of business. Thrive is 704, Biomesite is 546, and then everybody else only have a few. So the result is basically Thrive and Biomesites are the ones which gives the most comparable data to compare your samples with, and the most value, because somebody else may report a bacteria which I have never seen anybody else's, so I have no idea if your levels are high or low, if it comes in from, or even a rare bacteria or not. Samples coming in from Thrive or Biomesite, I have a pretty good idea if they are rare or not, because I have 504 samples from them or 700 samples from them. So that is and the process is very simple. You go over to it. Thrive has changed its name. You go over there, you hit the shop, you order it, and this is a US-based firm. And I heard recently it doesn't ship to Canada at the present, which is a bit of a pain for Canadians. We have Biomesite, which is a UK-based firm, which does ship to Canada. They are slightly more expensive, but that's basically because of the business model. Thrive, basically, let's put it this way. Thrive tries selling all sorts of other products with it, and the other products are usually high markup. So they sell their stuff almost as a loss leader. Because if they sell it to you, there's a good chance they can get a recurring orders for the other products from you, in which case they make money. Biomesite is basically that's to do one thing and one thing only, which is the microbiome. No site selling products, UK based. They have probably the friendliest interface of these two. We have other like Microbiome, which is in the Australia, which has advantages if you are in Australia. We also have the experts, the ones that blows me away. Gen, which is in Spain, and as you will see, going back here, Genogen. Typically, you get 2,600 species or 2,600 bacterial items being identified. Thrive 600. So Thrive only does a quarter of what Genogen does. Biomesite is also about a quarter. So Genogen gives you more information. Now, more information is good if, keyword, if and only if you have information to make use of that information. At the moment, basically, Biomesite and Thrive gives you about all the useful information. Everything else that you get is going to be information which, if I take the species they identify, go to PubMed and I research, I will find nothing useful about the species, not even what diseases associated with, what medical conditions associated with, how to modify or as an increase or decrease it, just total wipeout. It exists, we can identify it, but we have no clue as to what it actually is. Okay, so go through and you go, and Nirvana is another one, which is a US based firm, and they use they actually get their stuff processed through a different company called Cosmos ID, which is there, and their data comes in from there, and you can go in and do that. Okay, now, so you buy your kit, you come home, you give it shit. I mean, you take a sample of poo and use that with the kit. Follow the instructions carefully. One word of caution: microbiome changes during the day. My general suggestion is to take the microbiome upon waking and to write down annotation that was taken at waking time, first poo of the day, and then every subsequent one do at the same time. That will minimize the variations caused by what you ate for breakfast or for lunch or the stress of the day, all which will alter the microbiome temporarily. So you want first thing of the day, ideally a well-rested day, perhaps Sunday morning, and do it then so that the stress of the week has gone down, you've gotten to sleep in. Ideally, the night before, always have a consistently same meal. Boring, I know, but what you want to do is get a stable snapshot, not one that's going to fluctuate back and forth because of what you ate for supper the previous day, or because what amount of stress you have at work or at school, etc. So, back to the sample. What you want to do is get that sample taken, ship it in, wait 2 to 3 weeks, and you get results back. I'm going to show you what you do after that for 2 of the ones listed here, and some of the other ones are similar, but their support people should be able to help you. So I'm going to first do biome site, and I go in, I do a login, and you can see I have samples. In fact, almost all these samples weren't actually done by biome site. They were done by uBiome or by Thrive and uploaded the data, and they are being very sweet. So I strongly support you supporting them because they have done the reprocessing of their data sample using their software free of charge, which is sweet. Which means that you have the ability to compare reports from different providers by getting hold of what's called a FASTQ, which is the raw data file, the one with all the 4 letters repeating like the DNA. And you go here and you get all sorts of information about it. But what is, including practitioners who could provide access to you. We got a list of practitioners there, etc. Very long list, so you have support there. Okay, most of the practitioners are making a living from it, so expect to pay whatever the going rate is. But my site is free of charge, and it's here under external apps, microbiome prescription. And all you do is you go down here and you go in and you select which sample you want. You click that, and then it will automatically transfer from their side to microbiome prescription site, hassle-free. Once the transfer has happened, you will get an email with which contains a built-in login, which you just click to log into microbiome prescription. Now, nice and simple and clean. Rose, who runs Biome site, been doing a good job of adding features regularly. Now, over here on Ombre, we have a similar thing, except we have to do it in 2 stages. we have to go first. We have to log in. I'm going to see if my Google login will work. And it looks like it won't, so I'm going to have to go back. Okay, I checked my records, and Google is ken.lasseson@gmail, and my account here on Thrive was ken@lasseson.com. So I have to go and update there, and voila, we are there, and I'll just save it. And here we have there, so we have general health. So we go in and we go in and you will see underneath my kits there. And over here you have the kits. You can do a download of the FASTQ files. So if you want to move those over to Biome site and get a second reading of the same data. Remember, there's 97 different readings of the same data. And my general thing is, it's probably good for you to do a double read between the two of them. And we'll see and talk about the benefits of that in the third video of this series. But let's just do a download CSV file. There we go. And I'll go and download it. I could also go over to download the FASTQ file. We've got two separate files to download, but I won't worry about that right now. You could do that if you want. So we have a download, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it in the folder, which is in a different window. But I'm going to open the file, and this is what is in the file. Here's the taxon ID number, which is what we use. Remember, I went on and on about difference of name. Then it gives the taxonomy rank, which is sort of the hierarchy, going up, just like a street is in a neighborhood is in a city is in a county is in a state is within a federated area or United States, and the federated area or United or country is in perhaps the EU, and the EU is in the UN. So we have multiple layers going down, and classes intermediate layer, and the word family implies similar to human. You are a class of people. You are middle class, upper class, lower class, educated class, and then a family will generally belong to one class. That's the nature of life. And the next level down is called the genus, which is a part of a family. And then the genus you have species, and the species you have strings, at which point you'll almost technically add a unique identifier, but actually not. You're just getting close to it. You're looking at somebody's kids, and kids may have slight differences between them, or actually, yeah. So this is the file, and that is what we're going to actually wanting to be using. So now, with that type of file, we'll go over to microbiome description again, and this is Thrive. Everybody does a different layout of file, so we have a different import program for everybody, which is fun, especially whenever the supplier changes the format. It breaks things. I have to go in and rewrite a chunk of code to be able to import a new one. So we go over to Thrive and put in your email. In this case, I'm going to put in the default, which is the public example email there. The date, I'll go in here and select here, click upload and consent. And the consent is for the data to be shared with other citizen scientists. I think it's being buried in there. And voila, we are now there. And if you have other samples, they'll be showing up there. So that's basically it. And you see up at the top here, you can see the name of the person. And now you can go in and do whatever you want. So what I've just uploaded is this one. So I could go in and do something like quick suggestions, which takes you right to the outcome. And you can see exactly what. This little symbol here gives you information on dosages. Let's take a look at the bacillus, this particular one. And what you will find is listing of clinical studies, which you can link to so you can read the results information yourself, and what dosage. So million CFU, so that's basically 10 billion CFUs a day, 1 billion CFUs per day, 10 billion CFUs per day. So it gives you dosages that are used in clinical studies, and that means you can ignore the manufacturer advice on their bottle, because in general, they have no clue. They just put a number there. And in fact, there are times where the dosage they suggested may be ineffectual for doing a change. But it does encourage you to keep coming back and buying more of the products. They have a motivation not to give the best advice, and that is repeat business. If it works and you're done with it, there's no business model. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the economy we're in. Okay, so that's one, and you can go back here, and you can go in, and you see there's tons of information there about what's there. You can go over and let's go over and look at sample visualization. Let's go down to here. Oops. Oh, okay. I know why that happened. Okay, that is hopefully sometimes when data gets uploaded, okay, let's do that one more time. Actually, what I'll do is I'll go up to somebody else. Data is processed once a day for filling in gaps, and oops, no data. That one. Okay, I got bounced off totally. Okay, so if you click login, and just the login I used was the demo site, and now we go in, and let's see what happens now. Sample visualization. Now everything is there, and you have everything listed by name. On the far right, you have hierarchy, and that is showing the world, UN, EU, country, state, county, city, whatever. And you should see the information there. And these are all taxon numbers. Just as you know, what are these numbers? These are the actual taxon numbers, which is our key thing. So if I sorted by here, what we now have is, you can see the phylum, which is a higher level, is Protobacteria. Then we have gamma Protobacteria. And then we go down over on the right, you can see how we are going down further and further and further into a particular bacteria. So this species belongs to this genus, that belongs to this family, that belongs to this order, that belongs to this class, that belongs to this phylum. And it keeps reminding me of the old childhood song about Eliza patching your bucket, and you start doing here and there and there and there. It's almost the same thing. Somebody should adapt that song for the microbiome. Okay, so it starts it that way, nice and easy. You can see by percentile. Percentiles are rounded to 1%. So if you no number is showing, it means you have less than 1%. And here you have, compared to other people, you have 100%. That is, you have higher than anybody else there, but it's almost never seen. So 100% doesn't mean 90%, and seeing in 19% of people. And whether or not it's significant or not becomes a complicated question, which I will delay to another one. We can now go and click here, and you get information. You will see what the numbers are in your samples. So I have 2 samples there. and the latest sample, the percentage went up compared to the earlier sample, so I know what the shift is in terms of that one. If I actually go over to bacteria and look at lactic bacillus, just type in whatever you want there. The percentage marks for wild cards. So there, and we go here, and now I can see for all my samples, all 7 of them. Actually, these aren't my samples; these are a combination. You can see what percentage each one sample has. You could click here if you sort, so you went from these, which are random samples, anywhere from 0 percentile, i.e. less than 1%, and less than 1%, all the way up to 82%, or a count of 3043. So you have all the information. And I think I'm about ready to shut up because we've gone on for half an hour. In short, that gets your information into there. You can go in and look at things like pie charts to see what is there. You can just change your sample up here. You go and say, okay, what do you have at the family level? And everything is there. And you can click here and just hover over, and it will give you all sorts of beautiful information. We can also go to fingers crossed. Corona chart, which is a different way of looking at it. And basically, this way is nice because if you go down and say, okay, wait a minute, this group is something I'm interested in, and all I have to do is double click here. And now that expands to be the whole circle, and now you can see all the subdivisions in there. And say, okay, wait a minute, I want to see parabacterials more, and that gives you the breakdown. The others means that we have detected that you have some of them, but these specific species or strains, we don't have the signature to identify what it is. It's sort of missing link, DNA, whatever. Okay, so I think at this point in time, you should be totally saturated with information, and I'll shut up now and get this uploaded, and you can get this far in your journey to understanding the microbiome.